This is how you do it. The Avengers is written and directed by Joss Whedon and stars, okay, get ready, Robert Downey Jr., Mark Ruffalo, Chris Hemsworth, Chris Evans, Scarlett Johansson, Jeremy Renner, Nick Fury, Samuel L. Jackson, Clark Gregg, Kobe Smulders, Tom Hiddleston, Stellan Skarsgård. Tons of people. Now, in the Avengers, Loki, spoilers at the end of Thor, has been pretty much drifting around through space, and he comes into contact with this race of aliens known as the Chitauri, and he's given the opportunity to go back to Earth and pretty much take it over. And he steals the Tesseract from Captain America, and he pretty much starts war with Shield, and Shield uh, begins to bring together the Avengers and to fight Loki. But then before they fight Loki, they have to kind of learn how to deal with themselves. Now, no matter what you think about the Avengers, this was a cinematic event, really, because this was like a 4-year plan in the making, starting from Iron Man all the way up to 2012. And not only was this a long-term plan, it was also a long-term crossover plan. And crossover movies aren't necessarily done very well. I mean, looking at the track record of the crossover movies, you have like Freddy versus Jason, Alien versus Predator. None of those really were very impactful in any way. And the Avengers was like, even if it would fail, it would be remembered as the biggest crossover project ever done. Fortunately, though, it was done right, and this movie earned like so much. It's like one of the highest earning movies ever, and it really did solidify Marvel as a movie making superpower. Like after this, they could do anything they wanted because they could rake in the cash. They could deliver also on the quality. And the Avengers is some of the most fun you will ever have watching a movie, like ever. Now, when talking about the Avengers, it's so difficult where to start because this is really such a gigantic project and really is like a combination of like four different franchises. But I guess we can start with it was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Visual Effects, and the visual effects here, while not necessarily the most impressive in terms of believability or seamlessness, it is like such a huge accomplishment just because the myriad of visual effects and production design choices happening here, because again you have like so many different characters from different worlds and environments, and they're doing so much stuff that's so different and diverse to kind of combine them and really just give this singular vision. It really does that so well. The Iron Man suits look great, the Chitauri look great, Thor looks great, Hulk, they kind of changed him up a bit so he's kind of less veiny. He looks less, shiny as he was in the Incredible Hulk. But here, I think he does just match the movie more. I mean, if they had the Incredible Hulk here, it would have been kind of out of place. But I like how they kind of tweak the visual effects from the past movies so that they could all fit together. And that's really what most of this movie is about, balance. Like, I'm going to be mentioning that word a lot in this review. Like, this movie really is a fantastic example of how to balance so many different elements. Like I said, it's not all like seamless. Like, there is some obvious green screen at certain points, but the large scale event that's happening is like so engaging that you don't really mind. This really sells the fact that New York's being under attack and all this larger than life stuff is happening. And in terms of like cinematography and stuff, again, I think each character here kind of gets their own look, because again, looking at the past Marvel movies, they all kind of had different looks. I mean, the Incredible Hulk was, I think, definitely the darkest among all of them. Iron Man for me was the brightest. Thor had its otherworldly look, and Captain America had that old school kind of high speed look also. And obviously, you couldn't bring all of that into the Avengers, so they did kind of fuse them together again, balance. And every character really does kind of get their moment when it just feels like the movie kind of switches look just to fit those characters. Like, let's say when Black Widow is fighting with Hawkeye, it looks very spy thrillerish. It's very dark and stuff. But when the Hulk is going on, it's almost like a horror movie. But ultimately, the look of the Avengers is really like bright colors and stuff, and I really appreciate that because with all the other superhero movies trying to be dark and gritty, it's such a breath of fresh air to have something so joyously vivid. Speaking of balance, the sound is also very balanced. Again, you have different kinds of sound effects from all these different worlds. You have Thor, you have Captain America, Iron Man, the Hulk, and it's all again balanced extremely well. But they did also retain all the sounds and love, like the Iron Man sounds. I like how they kind of changed up Thor's hammer sound. So like whenever it zooms around, it makes this woo sound or whatever. I don't know how to make that sound, but I don't know. It's just they did really just refine everything. And the music by Alan Silvestri is really great. It's like it's really suitably anthemic for something like this, but I remember him saying something like, he had to kind of piece together all these different personalities and kind of unite them. So, and you kind of feel that also. I don't know, there's just a little bit of every hero in this theme. But what I love so much about the Avengers, and the thing that makes it stand out from all these other blockbusters, is that it is ultimately a character-driven plot. The plot is actually very simple when you think about it. Loki's out there, trying to enslave the world. Heroes have to go and get him. And seriously, that's it. There's no complicated whatever in it. And this movie really is driven by the strength of its characters. And these characters are balanced so extremely well. Joss Whedon, as a writer, because of his background in TV and stuff, he really knows how to kind of give every character, equal screen time and equal relevance. He recognizes that the Avengers is a unit and that it can only work if it works as a unit. Can't be like different personalities, strong personalities, trying to compete for the spotlight. That's not how it works. I also have no idea how he wrote this dialogue because it's so impressive to me to be able to write so many different diverse characters and nail them absolutely, spot on. Again, there's balance, but what I like is that dialogue overall in this movie is very light. It's very smartly witty, and it never stoops down to the level of too Nordic or too technological. It's really is kept on a human level. It's about how to kind of put your differences aside and just focus on the main goal. The great thing about the Avengers is that, as mixed as my feelings were about the Incredible Hulk and Iron Man 2 and Thor, this movie really does bring out the best in every character. You kind of forget about the missteps that they did in the past. Here, they just really do bring out the best in each character. Okay, let's go by them one by one, because you're talking about the Avengers, you just have to talk about them one by one. First of all, Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. Again, he is so great at it. He's probably one of the best actors in this entire ensemble, and that's saying a lot. He really has a sense of there's something deeper under Tony Stark that's hiding behind all the smart ass language and stuff, and you can tell he has like this baggage, but he's just kind of too vulnerable. He doesn't want to show it off. I really, really like also how Chris Evans still retains that schoolboy feel. Like if you watch Captain America: The First Avenger right before watching the Avengers, and when you see Chris Evans, you will again see that skinny guy from Brooklyn, because I like how his personality is still like that, even if he finds himself in this crazy situation. He doesn't lose sight of who he is. Lots of controversy was put up with the fact that Mark Ruffalo is replacing Edward Norton, because Edward Norton is a very great actor and he's well respected also. But I heard that this wasn't good terms also, and Mark Ruffalo actually does a really really good job. But again, what I feel with this role is that they kind of rewrote it to fit Mark Ruffalo. They didn't give Mark Ruffalo lines that should have been for Edward Norton. They really tried to tailor this role to the actor. It's kind of like what they did when Terrence Howard was replaced by Don Cheadle from Iron Man 1 to Iron Man 2. And here, the Bruce Banner we get here is great because he kind of knows how to control his anger a bit more. He knows how to control this Hulk a bit more. But at the same time, he's trying to lay low. He's all naive and stuff. But at the same time, I just love how people fear him so much because they know he can just when the Hulk is unleashed, like he just destroys everything. No one has a chance. And I like that. I like how, despite the meager success of the Incredible Hulk, like Marvel really wanted to show that you have to, care about the Hulk because he is crazy. Chris Hemsworth as Thor again is really great in his role. He really owns this whole Asgardian thing. He really sells it, and I really think he brings out the best in his character when he's with Loki. And same with Tom Hiddleston. When they're in the scene together, it's really different because you feel like their connection, you feel their weight, and that's something that no other two actors in this movie have. Like when Thor is with Loki, either they're fighting or they're talking. Like there's just this struggle, because they don't. Thor doesn't actually want to kill Loki or anything, but at the same time, you do have to kind of stop him. Scarlett Johansson is really surprising this movie, and she is not used to be just like a pretty face. Like honestly, in Iron Man 2, there were lots of shots where it's just kind of exploiting her beauty, but here she really is just a character, straight and forward. There's no shot that's like, oh look at these curves or anything. It's really just Scarlett Johansson playing a really really great character with this past we hadn't heard about before, and she really again brings that baggage. Jeremy Renner arguably is the Avenger we know the least about, although he does go through some interesting things during the movie. Although I think Jeremy Renner does bring something to him. He is very suave, I'd say, and he's kind of like the textbook Shield agent, but at the same time he does feel very like, he has a personal grudge match against Loki. Clark Gregg, Kobe Smulders, and Sam Jackson as their Shield agent counterparts are all great. Also, I like how Clark Gregg brings the kind of humor to his role. I like how Kobe Smulders brings the authority to the role, which is like the opposite because How I Met Your Mother. And Samuel L. Jackson is given much more to do here, and he is great. He really commands the stage, and he doesn't come off as Sam Jackson. He is Nick Fury in this movie. It's nice to see Stellan Skarsgård also from Thor. I don't know, like it's just nice seeing that kind of familiar face also with like Gwyneth Paltrow. You get like a picture of Natalie Portman, but it's just nice to see these supporting characters really ties together the fact all these heroes are here in the same movie. And of course, you have Tom Hiddleston. Tom Hiddleston really is like he's the only villain going up against all these heroes, and he really has that charisma to match all of them. And again, he is pretty much like a different character than he was in Thor, because in Thor he was still kind of nice and stuff, and he had personal trauma, finding out who he really was. And here in the Avengers, he is pretty much crazy because he spent how much time in like a wormhole. His enthusiasm in this role is just great. Like you don't really dislike him as a villain. He's not really hateable as a villain, but he's very charismatic, and you get the evil vibe, but at the same time he's very charming. But honestly, this is all really thanks to Joss Whedon for really keeping it character driven. Like he understands this material so well that superhero crossover movie is not about fan service or the action or anything. It really is about paying respect to all these characters. Again, there's balance here in Joss Whedon's directing, but I also think there's lots of restraint because when you have all these elements, it's so fun to just kind of toy around with them and just make this entire movie a 2.5 hour attack on New York City thing. But he also has lots of quiet moments here where these personalities clash, and we get to really see who these people are more than ever. And Joss Whedon really knows how to film all kinds of action, whether it's people flying around Chitauri ships and being blown up, or it's just arguments happening. It always feels like no one's winning the fight. It's always evenly matched. I mean, some people might think that Chitauri are pretty weak, but they do put up a good fight, I think. And when the Avengers are arguing amongst each other, it never feels like someone is winning. Like at first I'm on someone's side, then I'm on another person's side, and it's great. There's really just so much to say about the Avengers, and really, ultimately, it really is just so fun because here is a movie that has just so much passion in it, so much respect for this material, and you can tell that every single person was dedicated to just kind of making this a fun experience, and that's so rare that this movie is not cynical at all. It's just completely a thrill ride. To have something like this that's so ambitious and yet so mindful of the fact that it needs to have a heart, and it does have a heart, but at the same time delivering this testosterone fueled action, it's such a great achievement. And like I said, I don't think the Avengers is perfect. I'm probably gonna get hate for this because you know I'm not looking for nitpicks to nitpick on. I'm just when I try and review a movie, I really try and evaluate it, and there are things that to me really stand out as negatives, but they do not take away from my enjoyment of this movie at all, really. Like, but objectively speaking, I just have to bring these things up. For one, there's some technical dialogue here, like especially between Tony Stark and Bruce Banner, like when they talk about all this scientific stuff, and you just end up kind of nodding your head at it. And that's not necessarily the problem. It's just that sometimes I feel like the movie kind of takes too much of an easy detour to go to the next set piece. Like I can't spoil it, but let's just say when they figure out how to go from set piece 2 to set piece 3, which is this movie's kind of broken up into 3 parts. Then they figure out how to get from 2 to 3. Like I don't really buy it. Like it's just someone had a hunch and they followed it, and oh, they were right. It seemed a bit too easy. And also, I have a little problem about how they handled Loki. I mean, Loki is fantastic here. Tom Hiddleston is fantastic. It's just that I thought there was just a bit too little of him, and it felt more like they were fighting the Chitauri, not really Loki. Now, some people might be arguing that since Loki is the god of mischief, this is all part of his plan. That he really kind of wanted to not be in the action so much, and he was going for a different end goal. Like he didn't actually want Earth to be enslaved. But for me, if that really was the case, then they shouldn't have made it so obvious that that wasn't the case. Because there's some moments here where Loki kind of disappears from the action, and he has the opportunity to do so much more. And he is a god; like he could just destroy everything, but he doesn't. So like, for one, it makes me think that something fishy's going on. But then I don't think if they wanted to make that kind of like a surprise for people, they should have made it a surprise. They shouldn't have made it so glaringly obvious. But other than that, The Avengers is a great movie. I mean, this is the definition of a blockbuster. Like a blockbuster done right. It's not stupid big action. It's not just loud noises. It really is like relevant action with characters you can care about and a plot that is, easy to follow. And The Avengers really was a game changer. After The Avengers came out, like every single person who wanted to make a superhero movie was just like, okay, now we have to do much better. The Avengers is great. It's exciting. It's full of heart. Also, it's very funny. And this is the kind of movie that big budget movie making that really shows you how to do it. Just keep strong characterization, keep strong action, and just have a blast with it. Have fun. All right. So that is my review of the Avengers. I know some of you might disagree, especially on my negatives, but whatever you guys thought of the Avengers, whether you agree with me or not, please leave me a comment and let's have a conversation.